Good evening and welcome to the only show where you can cut crime simply by watching the telly.
Tonight, some compelling reconstructions, including the story of the hole-in-the-wall gang.
A man popped into work at the weekend, locked the doors behind him and found he was surrounded by robbers.
What's it, mate?
And a cold case series of sex attacks, which stopped suddenly 6 years ago.
Be quiet! Stop screaming or I'll hit you. Get down there. Lie down. Get down there.
Now there's new evidence. Maybe you can help us solve it.
First, though, try thinking the unthinkable. This is really an appeal to everyone in Tamworth in Staffordshire, where 12 days ago the dance student Heather Tell set off from her home to meet a friend in a local park and never turned up. The following day, her body was found in undergrowth about 4 minutes walk away from the intended meeting place.
Police describe 17-year-old Heather as a striking-looking girl, tall, slim and blonde.
Despite the huge television and newspaper coverage, Peter Hall still needs all the help that he can get on this. But you've got some new information. Tell us about that.
Yes, a man was seen climbing out of the culvert which leads away from where Heather was found. There seems no reason why anyone should have been in that area except to get away from that place unseen.
And how good is the description of him?
We've got a good description. I think it's particularly significant. He's described as a white man, 20 to 30s. He'd got dark hair. Witness says it was either gelled or wet. And it's got a very distinctive straight fringe which goes straight across the forehead. He was wearing a white T-shirt and blue joggers or tracksuit bottoms with white stripes.
Now, the age again, 20s, 30s?
20s to 30s, yes.
And height?
We can't tell the height. The man was actually standing on the slope coming up from the culvert, and the woman was looking down at him, and it's very difficult to estimate height.
Now, you think that this is likely to be a local man, and actually, if you knew where this culvert was, it suggests very, very strong local knowledge. That means that somebody's brother, somebody's son, somebody's friend in Tamworth is this guy and is likely to be the killer.
That's right, probably local. Whilst it is almost impossible for people to think the worst of people that are close to them, I want people to think very hard about a son, a brother, a father, a friend. Where were they that Friday night? What time did they come in? What state were they in? If they have got any concerns, please contact us.
Call the studio, 0500 600 600, and we'll keep that number on the screen for most of the show. If you want, you can call the incident room. That's 01 785 234 953. In July, we reconstructed a botched robbery on a company in Skelmersdale in Lancashire. The thieves got nothing, but Ray Hanna, the owner, had a heart attack and died. After our appeal, 2 calls were made to Crime Stoppers, which led to a man from Huyton. He's been charged with murder, and 2 other men are under investigation. In April last year, we reconstructed the rape of a woman in Southampton and the abduction and rape of another. We had hundreds of calls, but in the end, DNA profiling confirmed that Stephen Raymond Kimber was the culprit. He's been sentenced to life for 3 rapes and 1 false imprisonment. And a man some people thought resembled Sean Connery, but 3 Crimewatch viewers recognised William Stewart Ford as the villain who'd been holding up building societies in Gwent, West Mercia and Yorkshire. As a direct result of their calls, he's been sentenced to life imprisonment for armed robbery.
What sets this next crime apart is that it just doesn't make any sense. There was no motive, and afterwards the attacker seemed almost unaware of what he'd done. But as you'll see, we really do need to find him before anybody else suffers the same ordeal as John Mason.
We're over to the hospital very soon, all right, mate?
When we get in the ambulance, John, there's a few more machines and things on the wire you're up to.
I thought I was going to die. I really did think I was going to die.
Relax, take some steady deep breaths. OK then, John, just a couple of deep breaths, please.
The second time I fainted, and I thought that was it.
Can we get a line on him, please?
Hospital now.
How many wounds?
To me, it wasn't fainting. I felt as if it was like everything went black, and that was it.
How's the breathing?
I thought I'd gone to heaven.
OK then, I mean, 1, 2,
Easy now. Quick as we can, thanks.
Well done, John. Excellent.
It's London Live Breakfast with Paul Ross and Claire McDonald, and it's 6:30.
On 94.9 FM.
Trying to get that motor sorted out. The old bill will be jumping all over us. It's hardly roadworthy, is it? And it ain't the cleanest motor on the manor, do you know what I mean? We'll give it a wash at least. Yeah, it will fall apart if you wash it, I know. But sort it out, we up. You're having a laugh, mate, ain't you? You should be paying me money. Listen, just get there, will ya? This woman's going mental.
John boy, cup of rosy, better time you made one.
I'll tell you what, that geezer is right muddled. Listen, you've got to pick up
6:30 a.m. at the office of Station Cars in Poplar.
Yeah, main reception. Hello, mate, can I help you?
Got a cab?
Yeah, where you going, mate?
Plasto.
What's your name?
Nick.
Hey, Johnny boy, what for you, mate? Plasto.
All right, here we go. See you later. Thanks, Phil.
God, what's that smell? You gonna take that dog out for a walk?
Oh, will do, don't keep on.
The bloke was gonked, agitated, but nothing really that we don't get in this office every day of the week. He didn't look right, but nor does half the people who live in Poplar.
Early mornings, you've got people walking in that missed their bus and missed their train and had to get to places to work, you know. At the time, I thought to myself, he had a silly little black bag on his back with this orangey coloured jacket with a cheese gutter cap on, and to me it looked so silly, but I didn't take a lot of notice, you know. I just thought, well, he's a customer and they dress how they want to dress, you know.
Where you going, mate? Glasgow Station?
Hello, car 8.
No.
80. We've done that job yet?
I don't know the name of the turning. I'll show you.
Just finished work, have you?
No. I'm just going to pick a mate up to go to work.
Going against the early rush hour traffic, they headed east, and the customer plainly knew the route, but he barely spoke a word. In a few minutes, they reached the Canning Town flyover and took the slip lane to the Barking Road. The passenger had a local accent and a pierced left eyebrow. He was average height and scrawny, with dark brown hair and probably in his late 20s.
Just pull over here, mate. It's okay. On a red car. Right here.
It was just before 6:45 a.m. when they pulled into Hague Road West.
I turned to the man and was going to say how much it was. And he started stabbing me with a knife. He just went mad.
What are you doing?
A few yards away, lorry driver Paul Henry was late for work.
I heard a scream. I had a look round, but I couldn't see nothing. Thought it might have been kids messing around or something, but I couldn't see nothing.
I tried to fight him off. I had the seatbelt on, so I didn't have a lot of chance. And I put my arms across like that to try and stop him. He cut all my arms.
As I got nearer to the car, the driver's door opened further, which prevented me from passing. I saw a passenger getting out of the car and walking off, no rushing, nothing like that, just walked at a slow pace, as if nothing had happened.
Oh, police! Yeah, there's a bloke been stabbed in Hague Road West. There's a lieutenant's just watching me. Tell him to hurry up, for God's sake!
The attacker casually wandered off, leaving behind his hat and the knife.
I was in so much pain. And I thought that was me lot. I really did. I mean...
Tell my wife I love her, tell my wife. Oh, it's all right, John, you can tell her yourself, mate.
His breathing started to deteriorate quite rapidly. His eyes started rolling around. She got scared he was going to die in my arms.
That's right, calm down, calm down.
Oh, please pull me.
Are you injured?
No, I'm all right. Have your seatbelt here, okay? He was a white bloke.
The police had got there in 5 minutes, but by then the man had gone, probably heading down Tunmarsh Lane and back to the Barking Road. Do you remember him? Bright orange puffer jacket and a little black rucksack, just before 7 a.m. on Wednesday the 12th of April.
as I was driving down the door.
John had been repeatedly stabbed with a 6-inch blade.
Just driving down and the door opened on the car.
I don't go out anywhere. If I go anywhere, I have to go with somebody, and it's, at the moment, it's really bad, you know. It's like he's taken away a part of my life. How can you forgive somebody that's done that to you?
Damien, this was an appalling attack. What was wrong with that guy? Was he on drugs? What?
Well, he was either on drugs or he was mentally unbalanced, or a combination of both. Certainly during the journey he was very agitated, and then after the frenzied attack on John, he calmly walked away, casually looking behind him. It was a very cold, calculated attack, and totally without provocation or motive.
Exactly, he didn't seem to have any motive at all, and afterwards he seems as if he hadn't got a care in the world. As you say, he hung around for a bit, but then he just seemed to melt into the crowd.
That's true, but we have got a good description of the man. There is an e-fit. He is a distinctive person. He was wearing or sporting a distinctive metal stud or ring in his left eyebrow. With regards to his clothing, he was wearing distinctive clothing.
Oh yes, we've got this flat cap here.
Yes,
Let's
indeed.
have a look.
It's a flat cap. It's quite unusual. He was also wearing an orange puffer-type jacket, and he was carrying a small black rucksack. Someone from the e-fit and from the description of the clothing must be able to identify this man.
Okay, so briefly then, what about other witnesses? Where might they have seen this man?
Well, at 6:30 a.m, the suspect was in Poplar station cars. We'd like to know, where was he before that? Was he clubbing, drinking, going to or from work? Someone must have seen him. Similarly, at 6:45 a.m, he was in Plaistow and Hague Road West, and he walked up Hague Road West and turned right into Tunmarsh Lane, and he was walking towards the Barking Road, which is a very short distance away. His clothing would have been blood-stained. He was still carrying the black rucksack, and someone must have seen him, and I would appeal for anybody who did see him to come forward.
OK, let's see what we can do. The minicab driver you saw in the film there, John Mason, he's very distressed by what happened. He's frightened to leave the house. He may well never work again. If you've got any information about this man, please call here in the studio or the incident room on 020 7275 5777.
The phrase Akvatiti Lopova is a bit of a mouthful, believe me, but the Serbo-Croatian for stop thief would have been very handy at a jeweller's shop in West Byfleet, Surrey, a month ago. This trio of shoppers spoke no English, but still managed to get away with a bag full of jewels. They waited until the staff were distracted, then the man reached behind the counter and lifted trays of jewellery into one of the woman's bags. They've already pulled off one similar theft. Do you recognise any of them? They were last seen in a C-registered Ford Escort which had been sold in Berkshire to two men also believed to be from the Balkan region. Call 01483 761 991.
And there's a European angle to this next story too, as well as some of the best images you can now get from security cameras. And it's last December and a robbery at a travel agent in Five Ways, Birmingham. Here are two of the three young raiders, all teenagers, all with Birmingham accents. But what's the link that led from them all the way to this man, calling himself Robert Armstrong, caught trying to cash some of the stolen travellers' cheques in Geneva, Switzerland? 0121 626 5953.
If you like fast cars like this Honda NSX, better watch out for two men who've been touring the country in a nasty fraud operation. They answer small ads for privately owned high-performance cars. They give a false address and then pay with fraudulent banker's drafts. The owner of a car of this model and colour became one of the victims himself when the pair turned up at his home in Hemel Hempstead in August. On this occasion, they arrived in a black BMW M3 convertible. They didn't seem to notice the seller had a security camera on the side of his house, which captured the deal being struck. Now, they've used this scam 13 times since May. Give us their names before they have a chance to make it 14. Call 01442 271 066.
Remember the free call number here in the studio for any of our cases tonight, 0500 600 600, or on these or any other cases, you can call Crime Stoppers day or night. That's a free phone number, 0800 555 111.
Why would anyone want to murder 42-year-old Oliver Lynch? He was slightly eccentric, perhaps, but a very quiet and gentle man. 2 years ago, on the 29th of July, he was attacked for apparently no reason as he walked to the shops from his home on the Denmark Hill estate in southeast London. He was passing Perth Court when a group of white youths pulled him to the ground and kicked him repeatedly. Oliver later died in hospital. And you're Oliver's sister. This must have been a terrible shock for you and your family.
My family are totally devastated by my brother's death. My parents are elderly and my mother is ill from Oliver was murdered.
And I know you said to me earlier on that your mother, she talks about Oliver every day.
She talks about Oliver every day, yes, she does.
Now tell us a bit about what Oliver was like.
Oliver was a very quiet, honest person and he liked to help out people. And he could make people laugh.
And in fact, you say you like to help out people. On the day you went to the shops, we think he may actually have been going to get something for somebody else.
Yes, I was told that he was going out to get something for somebody's tea. A young man that was there with him on that evening.
So we have here a man who was going out to help other people and yet he was murdered in this way.
Yes.
Now, what do we know about these attackers?
Well, what I can say about the original investigation, that 5 young men were actually charged with the murder of Oliver. Unfortunately, due to a lack of identification evidence, that prosecution was ultimately unsuccessful. However, we're satisfied that there are other people involved in the attack. They're the people we want to identify now.
Now, this happened at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's right, yeah.
Busy estate. People must have seen what was going on.
One would assume so, yes. Unfortunately, despite extensive inquiries that we made on the estate, there were very few witnesses who actually were forthcoming at that time. But as you say, we're satisfied that there must be other people who saw it. Likewise, there must be other people who subsequently heard about the attack, either directly or indirectly. They're the people we want to speak to now.
And obviously it was 2 years ago, so people may have moved away, or they may have had reasons then for not wanting to talk, but they may feel they could talk now.
There may have been an original reluctance on part of some people, but as you say, there may be a change of circumstances, a change of allegiance, possibly moving away from the area. We're just hopeful that, particularly having listened to Anne this evening, that this appeal is going to jog a few memories and hopefully perhaps jog a few consciences as well.
And what do you think about the fact that people may know something but just don't particularly want to get involved?
Well, if there's anybody out there that knows anything at all, I'm asking the police come forward because it has affected my family so much.
And it'll make a big difference to you, won't it?
It would make a big difference to our lives if somebody came forward because we can't grieve at all until something happens, until those people that this cowardly act to my brother is brought to justice.
Right, well, let's see if we can help you tonight. Please, find the courage to pick up the phone. It's a free call, 0500 600 600, or the incident room on 020 88 53 1212. We're live on the air and you can do it any time tonight.
Just tell you some of the calls that are coming on the attack on the stabbing of the taxi driver in Plaistow. We've had a lot of interesting stuff coming in on that. Somebody's pointed out this was a similar offence in 1997. There have been some similar offences nearby in Silvertown, and maybe they're all linked. On Heather Tell, 5 names have come in, all from the area in Telford. That looks fascinating. And we've had a whole flurry of calls on a rapist, a sex offender. And that's a case that we only showed a clip of at the beginning, but we've already got some intriguing stuff coming in on that, including one very interesting name. And let's now look at that case. It's the so-called cold case, the one that ground to a halt in Merseyside in 1994. But scientists, together with detectives, have now brought it back to life. And there's a lot of emotion propelling this inquiry, a lot of people waiting for justice.
Between 1989 and 1994, there were at least 30 sex offences in Wiston, Rainhill and Prescott, now almost certainly linked to one offender. He must have walked long distances over open spaces and along railway lines. He plainly knew this area of Merseyside well. He was indecently exposing himself, and he did it twice more nearby in the next hour. He had a routine pattern of behaviour that built from flashing to a serious attack, and it culminated that night in a trauma so awful that the 14-year-old victim, now aged 23, is still too upset to speak about it. So a police officer describes what happened.
The girls had spent most of the afternoon together. They decided it was time to make their way home. And the 3 of them turned into Chatsworth Road, and they'd not walked very far into the road when they heard a man's voice shouting. Oi! He was exposing himself.
Come here. Dirty bugger.
The girls were frightened, they turned away. Later on, the girls split up.
Okay, take care. See ya. Bye.
She had about just over a mile to go to complete her journey home. She heard a noise behind her. Her concern would be this man from the incident earlier, who she'd now seen twice. As she walked past the nurse's home, she was suddenly grabbed.
Be quiet! Stop screaming or I'll hit you. Get down there. Lie down. Get down there.
The 14-year-old tried to resist, but he punched her, then raped her violently.
Lie back down. Stop moving or I'll kill you.
She was a very bright, intelligent, happy-go-lucky girl. She had lots of friends. As a result of the incident, she withdrew from friends and she lost all her self-confidence and her self-esteem. She does live in fear of this person to this day. It's devastating not only her life, but that of her family.
8 months later, now August 1991, but only 200 yards from the scene of the January rape.
I'd arranged with my 2 friends to meet at the bus stop opposite the hospital. Then one of my friends noticed a man across the road. He started to undress. Strangely, put his t-shirt over his head.
Oh, actually, I'm going to my auntie's tonight. Can I get in there? Hey? Have you seen that fella over there getting undressed?
There were a lot of people about. So although we were anxious, I think we sort of knew really that we weren't in any great danger. He then got dressed and started to cross the road and approach us, which we were rather uncomfortable with. Then he started talking to us.
Got a light?
Don't smoke.
My friend gave him a light, and I do remember the cigar being rather distinctive, slim cigar on the lines of a Hamlet.
Where are you going?
Nowhere.
What time's the bus?
What bus do you want to get?
Dunno.
What side of the road do you want to get the bus from?
Dunno.
The biggest thing about him, he's got sort of very staring eyes. When he spoke, he really sort of focused on you. Very large, steely eyes.
When you see a young girl like that, you just want to follow them and shag them, you know what I mean? When you get to my age, 26, you just want to follow them because you can't be bothered. Yeah, don't look like I'm 26 though, do I?
2 hours later, about a mile from the bus stop, in a park near Eccleston.
Myself and 2 friends were going through Taylor Park, taking a shortcut, as we would do normally. We walked over to the boathouse. I saw this guy. He looked like he was zipping up his jeans. I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't think anything. And then he started to get closer. Then I think we realised that something wasn't right. He was trying to sort of catch up with us. When he got closer, I started to feel scared. So did my friends. It made us feel intimidated. He started to walk faster. So we started to walk faster.
Did you ever fish in Taylor Park, or maybe walk your dogs there in the early 90s? Do you recall an odd character who followed girls? Then 2 hours on, and not far from the park, a student had just left a friend's house.
I carried on down Church Road till I got to the bus stop. When I saw a man across the road, I didn't think anything of it, and he shouted across to me.
Does the bus go from here?
Yeah.
He then went behind me. Well, I did actually think, I wonder what he's doing and whether something was going to happen, but you just put the thought out your head that it just doesn't happen to you.
Is it going to town?
Yeah.
And the next minute he grabbed me and dragged me up the side of the house.
Shut up!
Can't breathe. I really can't breathe.
If you don't shut up, I won't let you breathe at all.
The 17-year-old was forced over a fence onto empty ground. There she was seriously sexually assaulted.
Well, after the attack, I changed. I couldn't go out on my own. I couldn't stand anyone standing behind me. Fear of males. I just basically lost all my confidence, my respect and my freedom.
Go!
It's took a long time, really, for me to move on. But I can't really shut everything out of my mind until this man's caught.
Well, let's see if we can catch him. Paul Foster's the man that's reopened this case, and it's obviously struck a chord locally from the response we've had so far. 5 offences definitely linked through DNA, a whole string of other ones. You've obviously got a lot on this guy.
Yeah, so much so, I believe we're just looking for the missing piece in the jigsaw now. He's shown by his movements and everything about him that he has a massive knowledge of the Prescott, Whiston and particularly Rainhill areas of Merseyside.
Now, there was one occasion where a girl, we didn't show it there, but thought he had a little black dog with him, and he didn't have it later. Now, either she was mistaken, the dog wasn't his, or else he'd taken it home or taken it to his auntie's or wherever.
Again, this shows a good connection with the Rainhill area, where he has been able to get rid of this dog if in fact one exists.
Now, because there are so many different witnesses, the descriptions always vary a little bit. Let's show a couple of the e-fits. I mean, they do look a bit different. Tell us what the similarities are.
What we have for this male, what we know in 1991, he was approximately 5'10" to 6 feet tall. He was of slim build. His hair was mousy brown, which was a little bit longer on the top, but very short round the sides. The main feature was he often had stubble in various lengths, sometimes towards a beard, around his face and his moustache.
Possibly sticky out ears, at least they look like that. His hair was very short.
And his eyes were always said to be deep staring.
Why did he stop in 1994?
Well, the last known attack we have is 1994. This could be because he's in prison now, or he has served a term of imprisonment. But is it his last attack? 1994 is the last attack that we know is forensically linked.
But other women haven't come forward, or they haven't been linked with this if it has been reported?
Nobody else has come forward, no.
It's possible if he was in prison, he was out in 1999, because I know one of the victims was pretty sure she saw him on a train.
Yes, the victim from Northwich in Cheshire in 1994, which was the last forensically linked case, is adamant that she saw her attacker on the railway station at Chester around 6 o'clock one evening, and boarding a train headed for either Stockport or Manchester.
So if he was in prison, he may be out. Wherever he is, whoever you think he is, please call us 0500 600 600 or the incident room 0151 494 2441. And remember, if you've been a victim of any crime and you want to talk to somebody, you can call Victim Support Line on 0845 30 30 900.
City of London police have uncovered what they believe is a major fraud operation. They think this is a small part of it. The man at the counter visited the same bank in Covent Garden 4 times to clean out a pensioner's savings account. Now, he knew extensive details about the account holder and produced a passport in his name on one occasion. So who is he? Tanned, maybe Asian, 50 years old and 5'10". And who's the younger female accomplice in the stripy jumper? Call 020 7601 2522.
The shop that's never knowingly undersold isn't easily defrauded either. Staff at the John Lewis department store at Bluewater in Dartford, Kent, stopped this man from buying goods with a stolen cheque. He presented a forged company letterhead as ID. Now, he's big in every sense, 6'3" and, well, generously proportioned. In fact, you can't miss him. So tell us who he is. Ring the incident room on 01322 283 154.
Now let's take a look at what we're calling the hole-in-the-wall gang. As you'll see at the end, the gang is a lot more vicious than they appear in our reconstruction. The story starts a year ago with a break-in at a warehouse in Huddersfield. To get into the building, they adopted somewhat unorthodox tactics.
It's a family business. We sell televisions, videos, most electrical household things. I felt some sort of indignation. It was similar in a way to having your house burgled, where you would perhaps you'd have an emotional attachment then.
Almost a year later, when they'd got over the break-in, the same thing happened again. Maybe a different gang, but they entered at exactly the same place. Richard had spent that Saturday helping an employee move house. At 6:20 in the evening, he drove back to the warehouse to lock up the company truck.
I heard a noise, thought it was perhaps something on the roof.
What's it, mate?
That single moment, it was probably the most terrifying of my life, knowing that I'd locked myself in, secured the lock, and I had nowhere to run away to.
Get up! Right! Behave yourself, all right? Behave! Get in the van, get in!
I didn't know if I was going to be locked in there and left all weekend, or whether I was going to be driven away while in the van. So I basically just made as much noise as possible.
There he is! No! Police! No! Come on!
I actually thought still at that time that if I kicked up enough and made enough noise, that they'd get scared off.
Shut him up, will you?
I didn't expect it at all when the back was flung open again. They jumped on, pushed me back and hit me. I mean, they got annoyed. They were getting annoyed with me. It was my property, my territory, my work environment, and they were getting annoyed and hitting me for fighting back.
It's all right, he's behaving. Get in. Stay there.
I was resigned to the fact that they weren't going to go away. Felt stupid and angry and scared that I was watching it and I was powerless to do anything.
Sweet, mate.
I had to sit watching them while they helped themselves, like you would in the supermarket, to whatever they fancied. I thought I heard Dave, and I thought I heard the name Baz or Jez, but whatever it was, it ended in a Z. The one I called Big Guy, he seemed to be in charge.
You all right, Richard? Just 5 more minutes.
There's the one I called the Unmasked one. He just walked past me with his hand pathetically over his face.
Oh, look at the state of you. 5 guys having a go at you. We could have killed you. What do you want to have a go for?
The one I call the cheeky one. He was enjoying it. He was in his element, he was.
You were already in here when I came in, weren't you?
No, we followed you in.
You from Manchester?
Now, you're asking too many questions. Do you want another slap?
No.
Good.
One was just a weedy little one, but equally he's the one who punched me. And the 5th one is the most obscure because I couldn't really say anything concrete.
You can undo yourself as soon as we've gone. You'll find a big hole in the back. That's where we came in.
I think they've taken a real liberty in that there was no need, I don't think, in that situation to use the violence that they did, using iron bars and kicking me while I'm down on the floor is, well, out of order, really.
Somewhere after leaving Huddersfield, the van was unloaded. But where? Richard thought he'd heard Manchester accents, and that's where the lorry was found. These are the arches that lead to the Ordsall estate, and this is what happened just after the lorry arrived. Now, since the break-in, security has obviously been stepped up pretty dramatically. But thanks to Richard's way of memorising the gang members, we've got good descriptions of them. Take a look at Big Guy. In his late 20s, slim and muscular, at least 6'2". Then there's Cheeky, about 22, 5'8". Richard describes him as a cocky, nasty character. And these two were both skinny, pale and gaunt. Then there's Unmasked. He's in his mid-20s, about 5'7", stocky, tanned at the time. You might have seen them when they set the van alight if you were on the train passing through Ordsall at 9 o'clock in the evening on Saturday, the 5th of August. Or have you recently been offered anything with labels like these on the boxes? There's a reward, so call here in the studio on 0500 600 600 or the incident room on 01484 43 6680.
Simon Simpson was a fairly unassuming man. He kept himself to himself. His family, though, hit the headlines in 1977 because Ina, his mum, who's now 79, had adopted no fewer than 9 children, including Simon. And she won praise from no less a dignitary than the local MP, a certain Margaret Thatcher. The Simpsons, in fact, were one big happy family until the night of Thursday, May the 4th. That was the night Ken Livingstone was elected London's mayor, but that night Simon was attacked and beaten so savagely that 2 weeks later he died. Simon was the manager of Fairline, a grocery shop in Green Lanes in Haringey, North London. Now, it may not be relevant, but 2 weeks before the attack, he'd been threatened by one of 4 Irish traveller women after he'd caught them shoplifting. She shouted at him, "I'll get my brothers and we'll come back and get you." On May the 4th, Simon locked up his shop around 10 p.m, and at around 10:30 p.m, he was found lying unconscious in Salisbury Mews, just behind the busy Suffolk Punch public house. No clear motive for this, in fact, no motive at all. It does seem a bit obscure that the travellers, I mean, that argument was 2 weeks before. Presumably you need to trace them for elimination rather than
It is for
suspicion.
elimination purposes. I accept it was 2 weeks before the incident, yes.
They were seen getting into a car. Tell us about that.
Yes, it's a blue, dark-coloured, old-style, 5-door Sierra motor car.
Do you want that woman or any of the others just to come forward to eliminate?
Absolutely.
Not going to do them for shoplifting? Tell us about the other car you're trying to get hold of. I know there's another vehicle. I don't know what its involvement
We
is.
do have a sighting of Simon near a square, old-type box vehicle, and the driver or person with it was an Asian male. We think that car was a Triumph Vitesse. We'd like that man to come forward. He may have vital information for us.
The Suffolk Punch public house is key to this. It's a huge big window. A lot of people would have looked out, would have seen what was happening. They wouldn't have realised it was serious because apparently it looked like sort of a jostling going on. But there was one guy who went to the shop the next day and said, "I saw it." They didn't take his name.
Yes, there was some jostling in the street, and someone has seen 3 people running from that street across the busy Green Lanes and into Wareham Road. The next day, a black male, and we know no further of him, went and approached a member of the staff and said he witnessed the incident. We need him to come forward.
Well, if it was
urgently.
you, for heaven's sake, give us a call, please. If you know anything about this, ring the incident room or ring us here. The incident room is 020 8358 1877.
Can you help catch a young man who raped a child? Once a week during the school holidays, a nightclub in Hillingdon, West London, holds an under-18s night. And earlier this year, a 13-year-old girl was forced to the edge of the crowded dance floor and raped. In the darkness, nobody realised what was happening. Now, we think this youth might have some information about the attack, and if you recognise him, then please contact us urgently. Now, you think that nobody would put fear of bad publicity over finding the rapist of a young girl. The nightclub would only release this video to the police on condition that they were not named. But if you know the area well, I think we've given you enough clues to work it out for yourself. 0500 600 600 or 020 8246 1417.
And these two may look friendly enough, but they inflicted appalling injuries on a man with learning difficulties. The victim was waiting on the platform of West Norwood Station in South London. He was taking a box of chocolates to his mum on Mother's Day. First, they searched him, but he had nothing, so they smashed his face in, probably with bricks. Who are these cowards? 0500 600 600 or 020 8649 2915.
And another bit of senseless violence, this time in Kent. Jonathan Lamoon is wanted in connection with the attack on a couple who were walking home from a Dover nightclub. Someone came up behind them, stabbing the man in the back, neck and eye. He needed 40 stitches, and doctors fear he may lose his sight. Now, we think Jonathan Lamoon may know something about the incident, so wherever he is tonight, please let us know. 0500 600 600 or 01622 654 321.
In the early hours of Saturday, the 15th of April this year, a 24-year-old woman was walking home after a night out with a friend. Out of nowhere, the man grabbed her, battered her head against the road and subjected her to a prolonged and vicious sexual assault. It happened at about 5 a.m. in Darrell Road, just off North Cross Road in Dulwich, south-east London. With DNA, the police have linked the man to another crime. Back on the 12th of February, again, in the early hours of Saturday morning, he crashed a stolen car, a 10-year-old white Austin Metro, which he took from the Ulverscroft Road. That's very close to where he later carried out the sex attack. The steering wheel and gear stick were covered in blood. He'll have had injuries to his head and possibly his hands. Now, this is an appalling attack. What do we know about the man who did this?
It is indeed, Fiona. I've seen cases where violence has been used against women in sex attacks, but this case goes way beyond anything I've come across, a terrifying level of violence. The suspect we're looking for is 20 to 30 years of age with fair hair, 6 foot tall, athletic build. And a significant thing is that the woman who was attacked says that he was dry on the evening. That's significant because that night it was pouring down with rain. He must have come from somewhere nearby, his home, a car, or a friend's home. By the end of the attack, or definitely by the time he got home, he would have been soaked to the skin.
Now, strangely, he was linked to another crime as well, this car theft, and there was someone else in the car with him.
That's correct, yes. He's possibly a car thief, and there was a second person in that car who may well know him as a car thief, but doesn't know him as a sex attacker. He clearly knows the Dulwich area very well. He's either lived there, worked there, or returns there on a regular basis. Someone in Dulwich knows who this man is.
Now, I know you've got DNA, so we can eliminate anyone from your inquiries if necessary. Now, what about the woman? How is she bearing up with all this?
She's a strong-willed lady, and she's bearing up well considering what she's gone through, but the attack is always in the back of her mind. And for her sake, and for the sake of any other women that are at risk, obviously, from this man, we need to catch him, and catch him quickly, because he's a danger and he's a brutal, dangerous man.
Right, OK, there you are. Let's catch him before he catches anyone else. Call 020 7232 7211.
What Fiona didn't say is that there was a witness to that appalling attack who didn't ring the police or do anything about it and watch it for some time. We have some fantastic calls coming in tonight. I mean, really superb. On the Merseyside sex attacks, we've had 10 names, all of them looking interesting. 2 of them are naming the same person, 2 callers naming the same person. We've got one woman who has been raped, she thinks by the same man. She hasn't so far reported it. One woman's rung in saying she felt sick after watching it. She thinks it's somebody that she's worked with. There's a lot of stuff coming in, particularly on Plasto and some of the other crimes as well, and some of the other appeals I think we're going to solve tonight. Please stay with us and see how many of these appeals are solved. Our free call lines here, they're open until midnight. Other numbers are on CFAX on page 621. You can email us at crimewatchuk@bbc.co.uk.
And remember, if you've been a victim of any crime and you'd like to talk to someone, you can call Victim Support Line on 0845 30 3900. There'll be volunteers waiting for your call until 2 in the morning.
Join us for Crimewatch Update at 11:30. Promise we'll have news for you. If you can't wait up, well, we'll have more news next month, Wednesday, October the 11th. There are millions of people watching now, and they're all willing to help. There's a lot more good than bad, so don't have nightmares. Do sleep well. Good night.
Good night.